Let us raise our glasses, mice, keyboards, and yes, now even our controllers, for this lovely game that is celebrating its major milestone of its first birthday. On this day 1 year ago, Reaper of Souls launched and breathed new life into the game. Adventure mode, bounties, rifts, grifts, ancients, diamonds, legendary gems, and more have all been introduced under the Reaper's banner. I ask all of us to look back on this past year and find those memories that have endeared ourselves to the game. While no game can ever be perfect, and Reaper has had its fair share of blunders and missteps, let us drink to what the future holds. May you always feel the love of the mistress of RNG and hear the ding of a new Paragon level. Happy birthday, Reaper of Souls, and here's to your future.
Yay, golf clap.
All right,
Yeah.
Cheers. Is that a reference from something, or is that just straight up from the heart?
No, that one was actually just straight up from the heart. I found a reference for one that I really liked, but as I'm sitting there typing it, it's like this would work so much better for the Diablo anniversary that's coming up next month.
Ooh. Next month, whoa.
Any other anniversaries coming up soon you can use that for?
Yeah.
Oh, good answer, dude. I
Yeah.
thought you were the host.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Is this the part where you introduce me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody,
yeah.
welcome. This is episode 43 of the Westmarch Workshop, 1 year of Reaper of Souls. We're here with our special guest, Flux from Diablo Incgamers, who most of you probably know from his own podcast, the Diablo Podcast, and from bringing you articles every day for the last 20-something years at this point. So, Flux, thanks for joining us tonight.
I do talking now.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
I
talking now.
words, mouth, and thing part.
This is that thing you're usually pretty good at.
I'm sorry, I'm horribly nervous. I don't know how to talk on the internet.
That's
At
all
least
right.
not live.
We'll be gentle with you. I know it's your first time.
Well, that's what she said. I don't know. People might be wondering if that's an old photo. That is a live photo. I just hold very still when I talk on the podcast. Because of the frame rate issues on Twitch TV, you will not notice my lips moving. And also, that is a stuffed dog.
Yes. There was actually, it's kind of funny, some people in chat were asking why you have my dog. There was a past gaffe that happened where I actually missed an episode, and Nineball and Archon, who you might know, Archon the Wizard, came up with some ridiculous story on, like, no prompting or any plan in advance. They just decided to have me chase a dog around Boston and whatnot. So I like that that all ties in right now. It's very fitting.
You know, I actually had a question for you on that. As Nineball has Bert, we've made jokes about in the past, where we hear his angry cockatoo screaming in the background. And other guests on the I'm on my podcast often. I shouldn't say my podcast. I just host the podcast on Diablo Incgamers. It just happens that I happen to have been the host on every podcast thus far, which is like 167, I think.
Mhm.
But at any moment, that could change. See, I'm just a guest. I'm just serving the people. But my point being, Nineball has Bert, and I have a cat that is usually pretty quiet, but occasionally walks through the room and makes demanding noises and is obnoxious. And like this other guy, Wolfpack has chinchillas. You sometimes hear running in his cage in the background, etc. Do you have any annoying small household animals, Leviathan, that might cause annoyance or disruption of the show?
I don't, actually. I live hashtag forever alone, just by myself here in this tiny apartment. But there are 3 feral cats that just like chill outside my apartment. I think it's because like the heat emanates from inside the apartment to the door. So they're literally like every time I open my door to leave in the morning, or like if I go outside and like empty the trash or whatever, they're literally sitting right there and they just mew at me. And I'm like, so we have Flux here today because, of course, it is the 1 year anniversary right now, March 25th, of Reaper of Souls, and we were all so lucky to be called over to California, Los Angeles to be specific, for a party exactly 1 year ago and a day ago, so March 24th, and we all chilled at the Vabana. It was the first time that I met Flux in person. Nineball, had you met Flux yet?
At the prior year's BlizzCon, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we both hunted Wyatt Chang at a BlizzCon previous to that.
Did you get a achievement for that?
It's a conquest, actually.
Ooh.
It's a feat of strength, even.
It did give you a banner accent.
I like it.
Well, Katniss has a Boston accent, so it makes sort of the same thing.
So quick-witted. I love it. So yeah, so we figured we would kind of do a reunion of sorts, even though we're all not in the same place right now. We are all at the same podcast, giving you our beautiful voices. And yeah, we just figured we kind of trip down memory lane to start things out, and then of course transfer that over to kind of our week in gaming, our feelings about Reaper, and then of course all the news items and things that have occurred since you last saw us 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So let's start out with just memories from that night. Do you guys recall anything in particular that was like super cool, or like just how are you feeling about Reaper at that moment?
I recall vodka as my main memory of that night. And waiting around till like 2 in the morning until these 2 drunk guys give me a ride back to my stepsister's place where I was staying, who lives in Hollywood, conveniently enough. When did you guys leave the party, and were you carried out?
Oh man.
Luckily, I was not carried out, but I think we left, I think, probably around 1-ish, when, as after they did the autograph signing, but then they closed the venue for Blizzard only, so you couldn't actually get back in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just
Unless
kind
you
of
had, you had the cool bracelet that Blizzard had.
Yeah, and you're just kind of ushered out the back through the garden, like with the rest of the trash. So it's like, okay, y'all had fun. You can all go and leave now.
Take your boxes and go.
Yeah.
There was no warning for that either. I was kind of inside talking to somebody and drinking my 7th beer of the night, and I went out to the bathroom and I walked back in, and they're like, "You can't come back in." I'm like, "But I was just inside." Like, "Well, you don't have the bracelet. You can't go back in." It was kind of like when a season ends and it just sort of is over suddenly and you don't realize it until like a minute beforehand. I'm like, but now I'm outside in the garden with the rest of the garbage, as Nineball just said.
Yeah. It was an interesting little transition there. That it wasn't something that was mentioned or even talked about until it happened. But from there, I think one of my most memorable moments there was actually getting a chance to speak with. I always get them confused. Russell Brower, who's one of the lead composers over at Blizzard now, and talk with him, not just about Diablo, but all of the music that he's done for all the games. That was like my little like nerd squee moment.
Yeah, he was a cool dude. I talked to him just a little bit during the signing portion, but I remember you fanning out over just getting because we were both going through the line at the same time, so you were ahead of me. And yeah, I remember that being cool. So you guys are talking about that moment where we got kicked out. I have my little badge thing here. I'll hold it up to the camera that we got to enter. But I actually forgot that the other thing was the we were collecting blood shards, if you guys remember, on that piece of paper, and you could redeem them for like a poster or backpack. Mm-hmm. And so I had mine saved up, and I was like, oh, we have to go get our things signed. So I thought I would go get it signed, go back in. I couldn't even redeem my poster. So Blizzard, you owe me a poster.
Okay.
I totally forgot about that. I got some prize. I don't know what I got. Well, I'm having like flashbacks because we had a podcast right after the event. I don't remember. I think one of you guys was on it. I don't even remember who was on it, but telling all the same stories. So now I'm remembering the same stories from a year ago, and like an old person repeating myself and not realizing that they're different. But I like totally hit on the one running the art, like the museum gallery, just for the fun of it, to see how she would shoot me down. Mm-hmm. And it was amusing. I was like, "So, how did you end up here? What are you doing later tonight?" And she just like, "I'm not working later." And just looked over me like I was just not. I didn't even exist.
That glassy stare right
like
there.
I was her first implant. She'd just taken it out and thrown it away and had moved on to bigger and better things.
and to put it into reference of imagining Flux going and talking to someone when we actually got to the venue, because it started at I think 9.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, we got in line at around 8:15, 8:30. We were texting you to see where you were at and when you wanted to meet up. He was at a bar across the street drinking already.
Well, my stepsister was hosting me, and she knew a bar nearby that we got like a nachos thing, and we were having tequila shots, of course. And you texted me, Nineball, and said you're waiting in line, and I said I don't wait in line. I'm a VIP.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Up, and you were like 5 feet from the door when we walked up, and we got in line with you. And you know what? I didn't wait in line. I was an MVP.
Truly were an MVP.
Well played. I feel used now.
As you should.
You guys are MVPs too, right? I mean, on the Blizzard forums things, they gave you the green text.
I don't know if I should say this, but I heard we can get it. I heard they actually give it to like fan site people too.
I have that. I just never use it. Yeah, they did like 2 years ago. I actually technically am an MVP. Mm-hmm. I just never post on Battle.net because I'm too good for that. I don't have a time.
We'll definitely get to that later on. Oh god.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to kind of conclude the reminiscing with. I remember just you walk in and there was a ton of food, which was awesome. I don't think I ate a single bite because it was so much like socializing. You saw all sorts of. Sorry, you're gonna say something, Namba?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I didn't eat much because I had my fill at McDonald's right before.
Oh.
Classy. You can take the man out of Florida, but not the Florida out of man.
There's a long story behind that one.
The only long part about it was how long we're in the freaking car for. Apparently, In-N-Out is the best thing ever. I've never had it to date because we tried to get to one. We were stuck in the famous LA traffic for God knows how long, days I think, and then we settled for McDonald's.
Because Leviathan picked a bunch of us up. There was Water Fiend, who's now Tyvalier, Jach, and myself picked us up from the airport, and Taffer from our Diablo, and Jach and I hadn't eaten in like 9 hours, from the plane ride and everything. And so here we are in LA traffic, and Taffer's just going on, oh, we have to go to In-N-Out. We have to go to In-N-Out. But we're already went to the hotel first, and then we have to find an In-N-Out. There's one 10 miles away, and it's 6 o'clock traffic. And so we're sitting there, and it takes us almost an hour to get like 3 blocks down. And it's just like, screw this, I'm starving. And so we stop at a McDonald's and we eat, and that was probably one of the best McDonald's I've ever had because I had almost not eaten in like 11 hours.
Which is hilarious.
I should have had you guys meet me at that Mexican restaurant. They had really good nachos and tequila.
Ooh, I love tequila.
So that's why you get a ride with a local, because my stepsister took us all these back roads and avoided all the highways, and we went across town in like 5 minutes.
Well, the next time they release Reaper of Souls, we know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But yeah, go ahead.
But continue.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, so when we roll up, there's food, there's all these personalities, there's like Nevik there from the Shattered Soulstone. I think there are a couple of other Shattered Soul Stoners there too. There was like Day 9 and all sorts of different streamers and personalities. And of course, all the devs just milling around too. So it was actually a really cool experience. Almost a precursor to what we see now when we kind of get this unfettered access to the devs with these tavern talks or them just popping into Reddit or Twitter or whatever have you. It was that first moment really of them just being open and being like, hey, like, let's talk. Like I walked up to Josh, shook his hand, and I was just like, hey man, like, thank you for making this game, awesome again. He actually had a lot of really cool bracelets. I was admiring that for the most part.
Like a fangirl.
And what he says, like the beginning of all of his talks or speeches or whatever, how he's always like, he says that he's very an animated person, and they're always telling him you can't move your hands like that. You just have to hold the mic in front of you. And it's true. If you ever have a conversation with that man, it's always the hands are going a million miles an hour all over the place.
I love it. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. That was probably my most memorable moment, was just talking to him. And then like Grant Imahara being like standing next door, just waiting to talk to him. And then he kind of jumped into the conversation, and we're just vibing about what we were going to play once we got home. And of course, home for them was a lot shorter than home for Nineball and I, and Flux, you actually had a decently shorter trip than the rest of us going back to the East Coast.
Well, I was staying with my parents in San Diego, so I stayed overnight at my sister's in Hollywood, and then drove back down to San Diego, and then flew back to Portland. Then like a day and a half later. So you guys, I think you all actually beat me to it, even though you had further to go because you left sooner. Yeah. But you mentioned the whole accessibility thing. You've been to BlizzCons, haven't you, Katniss?
No, not yet.
I mean, they're just like milling. You can. It's like a Blizzard employee petting zoo at BlizzCon. I mean, they're just kind of roaming around the halls, and if you happen to spot one, they're kind of in disguise. The official uniform of all Blizzard employees is jeans and a black T-shirt, and occasionally a dark gray T-shirt or a dark red T-shirt. Which, of course, is exactly what
everyone else is wearing.
BlizzCon.
Yeah.
What percent of Nineball, you've been there? What percent of people at BlizzCon are wearing jeans and a black T-shirt? Not counting cosplayers.
A lot. A
lot of percent.
A lot of percent.
Although it occurs to me that perhaps they are cosplaying. They're cosplaying as Blizzard employees.
Oh, the most subtle of cosplays.
So we just all wear blue jeans and a black T-shirt. Hey, I'm a Blizzard employee.
So you guys want to transition into the week in gaming? Maybe Nineball, you want to start us off?
Sure. This week, I have not done a lot of anything, unfortunately. Work has kind of kicked my ass. So I kind of last week and this week just kind of come home and then fall asleep. And then this weekend, I completely destroyed my life by someone convincing me to go and play this little tabletop game called X-Wing. And it was like I was 18 years old again, staying up until friggin' 6 o'clock in the morning playing with little plastic figures, and then not drinking any alcohol, and then waking up like I had a hangover, and not wanting to do that ever again.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, but then so I've been trying, even though the weekend is normally when I try to catch up on sleep, I'm now trying to catch up on sleep from the weekend.
Can you do that at your job, or you actually have to pay attention there?
I actually, unfortunately, have to pay attention.
That sucks. The worst kind of job.
Yeah.
They expect results and stuff from you.
Yeah, people apparently get angry when you don't answer the phone to tell them that their computer's ready.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So exciting. But how about yourself? How have you been doing?
I've been playing that good old Diablo. With this experience buff and gold buff that's live right now. I figured it would be a good time to kind of get back into grinding mode, trying to just really bust a ton of rifts out before the season ends. I'm like spoiling every news topic that we have, but I mean,
what is your Paragon level now, by the way?
I was desperately trying super hard to get to 600 before we started, but I'm like 599 and 7 3/4. So didn't quite get there. And it's weird, honestly, because if you look at it, it's a short season, and we'll talk about like the length and all that stuff later. But people have far exceeded their Paragon levels from Season 1 just because of the way that the experience buffs and things are working within Greater Rifts now. So it's almost funny when you think, oh man, like Season 2 is so short, it's not even going to look like I had a dedicated amount of time to, grind or Paragon level. But on the flip side, people's stuff will actually look like super inflated.
Well, especially with the 100% EXP. I didn't play that much yesterday. I joined a few four-player T6 kind of runs we're doing in the clan, and went from like, I was at like Paragon 407, and next thing I was like Paragon 434 in like an hour, it seemed like. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it definitely adds up. So Flux.
And then I went and played X-Wing for 3 hours and passed out in my own rule.
That sounds familiar, oddly enough. It sounds familiar.
All right, so Flux, you've been dying to tell us about your DH adventures. I got a little bit of a preview here, so hit us.
Yeah, well, now it's no fun. You built it up too much. No. So I hadn't been playing. I played a bunch right at the start of Season 2, and I was the first one in our Incgamers hardcore clan to do a Greater Rift 40. That was kind of my early goal, and I was able to get there. I was not the first 35, but I was the first 40. And I hadn't pushed it at all since then. I'd just been doing, I do some T6s every now and then, and I was just sort of burning all my shards on a monk and a witch doctor, which I got to 70. Neither of whom I enjoy playing, oddly enough. So even they're like really well geared now, and they're totally boring. So,
I don't like the witch doctor.
Actually, I might like the witch. I haven't done that much of the witch doctor yet, but the monk is bores the hell out of me. I was going to say, have either of you guys played the whole incense torch, lots of wave of light monk build in recent years?
I haven't played.
I know Katniss hasn't.
Yeah, yeah, it's a moot question over here.
Yep, and I've always been playing X-Wing, so.
Yes, I have forsaken the monk, even though it was my favorite. It was my OTP back in Classic. I've not really picked it back up since Reaper.
Okay, well the monk builds on the PTR are really fun. I mean, I played the 1,000 Storms thing, which is all about Dashing Strike now. I was playing that on the PTR just this week, like 2 days ago. That I really enjoy. It's a little bit spastic. It's not all that different from the old days of where you use a generator and then you just drop a few bells to kill everything off, except now instead of dropping bells, you teleport. But of course the bells do like 600% weapon damage, and the teleport does now 12,500% weapon damage. So it's just sort of ridiculous how much things die.
Yeah, that number has kept growing too, it seems.
Yeah, so I was joking. It's like the Reinhardt charge now, which is what, 11,000% or something?
Yeah, they only 10,000.
But it's really weird because it's horrible tactile because there's no visual. Like, the monk is it's basically just a teleport skill, right? I mean, you're here and then you're there. It's not like a dashing thing like the barbarian does, where you actually kind of see a swooshing graphic. You don't see anything. So your monk is here and then he's there, and everything between you has a huge crit number pop up and dies. And it's like you don't have a sense. It's like you feel like you're lagging while you're playing it. It's kind of weird that way. They really need to add some sort of graphic to show like where the area of effect of it is.
I think that there was actually a post about that recently. They're talking about like just that playability aspect of when using it.
Yeah, that's the main thing that people notice because you're just teleporting constantly. The level 4, the 4-piece bonus makes it so. Actually, I'm probably going to screw up the number of them. I'll be like the Blizzard guys on the Tavern talk when they never knew what the 4-piece bonuses were. Like we changed that so many times internally. But one of the bonus, I believe it is the 4-piece. Instead of having Dashing Strike take one of your counters for Dashing Strike, it takes a chunk of your resource. Or it takes the resource and refunds the counter. So basically, you're spending resource to Dashing Strike instead of spending the counter that builds up.
Right. Yep.
And you can do it until you're dry. But you can do like 6 or 8 of them if you're full. I mean, assuming you have various passives that are boosting your total resource. But really, everything dies in like 2 of them unless it's a Guardian. So it's not quite super crazy jerky like headachy, but some people feel it is, and they probably are prone to epilepsy. So they shouldn't play it anyway. But that's for the future. The current build on the live server is horribly boring and unfun. And you sort of just walk forward or run as the best the monk can in his waddling little Jay Wilson-esque pace. Oh, can we do Jay Wilson jokes, by the way?
I suppose.
Okay, good. I got several lined up.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
it's just like old times.
Yeah, you'll get blackballed too now, any minute now. So what you do with the current build is you have this incense torch, and generally you use it with 4 piece of Inyas and 4 piece of Sun Wukos, which gives you really good damage. But it's just so damn slow because it's a big slow-ass 2-handed weapon. And you kind of just walk into the middle of a group, and then you do your pull skill, and you drop a couple of pillars, and they all die. And then you waddle off to the next group, and you do a pull, and then you do some pillars, and they all die. And it just seems so plodding and tedious. I mean, it's effective, but I don't like it. So even after I've spent the last 10,000 shards to make it possible, I'm never going to play it again.
See, and that's interesting too, because I think there is a big division within the community, because I feel like there are people who have that sense where they're like, I want the monk to feel fast, like that's the fantasy of the monk, right? And that's kind of what Travis was talking about, to segue a little into the Tavern talk stuff.
Yeah. Travis is correct in this case.
Yeah, he was talking about, that fantasy, like the monk flying all over the screen. Like we've seen that as an iconic, sort of representation of that class. And that's one way to play the monk, and I think there will be people that gravitate towards that because it feels like what they imagine it should. But then, of
I'm
course,
one of those people, by the way,
and that's fine. That's good. And then they're on the other side of it. I feel like they're the people who want just the numbers. They want the efficiency. They want the thing that will put out the most damage, that will help them climb the highest. And when they see a set that doesn't let them do that, they want to turn it into a set that lets them do that. So that I feel like that was why there was some of those questions about why is Dashing Strike featured in this set. Like we wanted other skills, we wanted other viable options to play the monk, and so those two things just don't comport, or they don't seem to want to synergize with each other.
So the funny thing about the set build, I was doing some T6 runs with my monk on live, and it was taking me 7 or 8 minutes per rift. Everything dies in like one hit, but you're just slow to get between things. I just said, screw this, I'm going to do a Greater Rift. I had a 31 key sitting handy. I did my first attempt ever, Greater Rift 31, did it in 7 minutes. So I did Greater Rift 31 faster than I was doing T6, because you're overkilling so far with the monk, the Wave of Light gear. I have an ancient incense torch that my Demon Hunter found because she loves him. And it was like, I was actually faster doing a Greater Rift that was the equivalent of T8, just because the progress bars, right? The progress orbs, which we had very briefly on the PTR, and it was awesome, and then they went away. But that's like the last Greater Rift I'm ever doing with that monk. Like I did it, and I'm okay, it works. I'm now going to play something fun, like X-Wing, the card game.
Yes.
So
Great game,
getting back to the Demon Hunter. Sorry, when are you guys going to jump in there before I start bogarding again?
No, go Demon Hunter.
Yeah, so that was what I've been doing lately, and then playing a lot of PTR testing. I'm very happy with the strafe with the Natalia's set. It's very fun build in the PTR. Very awesome, like T6 farming thing.
Which version of it have you been playing with the strafe?
I played the initial version when it first went up on the PTR, and it was fun. And then the next patch, they greatly nerfed the CDR that you got from using skills while Natalia's was active. And I wrote angry, sad things about that, and I think whined about it for about 5 minutes on a podcast one night. And then the most recent patch appeared to make it worse based on the the patch notes. And that was in the patch notes, basically the same thing they did at the Abzad. It said channeled skills get less reduction except for the first thing you hit, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's fantastic. It's back to how it was at the start. So I did a whole thing on the last podcast I recorded Sunday night, and I hadn't had a chance to test it yet. And then I went and tested it after the podcast, and I was like, oh shit, everything I said was a lie. So I left the podcast as it was, because this is the internet, because who cares, right?
There you go.
I did add a little text note saying, I retract all these above comments. They are wrong. It actually works much better now than it did. So if you use Strafe now with Reign of Vengeance on the Talia set, the cooldown is about 3 seconds.
And you have it up 100% of the time.
You have 2 to 3 of them up 100% of the time.
Wow.
Yep.
Because the longest one, I like the physical one that is sort of a hunting, seeking thing, and that lasts for 8 seconds, and you can do the cooldown in 3 or 3.5 seconds if you just keep strafing.
Does
and
it
there's
stack?
essentially no. Yes, it stacks. I actually asked John Yang about that specifically. He said yes, it does stack.
Oh.
And he's Mr. Demon Hunter, so.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
They changed 3 of the runes of Reign of Vengeance, so they're like 2 seconds long. So obviously those don't stack because they're super, super fast.
Right.
But Shade is the lightning effect, and it makes a big circle. And the other one, I forget the name, but it's the physical one, and it's sort of it's yellow in color, and it seeks all over the screen. It hits things off the edge of the screen forever.
Yep, but it's a much smaller radius.
Yeah, it is spectacular against up to 5 enemies at once because it auto targets. On a really crowded screen, it sucks because there's 50 monsters and it doesn't know what to hit. And it hits great, but it just hits very few things at once. And I think that it's probably limited to GR35 or so with the strafe one with the physical one, just because it doesn't have the stacking power. I think maybe the lightning one with Shade, if you can stack up a couple of Shades at once, it's just such a killing field in one central area that you could really do well with that. But you would need to really play it differently, where you need to only cast that kind of when you have a big pack right in the middle. Basically, you need a pull skill, and you don't have them with a Demon Hunter. If you had a pull skill with that, it would be fantastic. And you could pull while strafing and then drop Shade on top of yourself.
Yeah, so that's something I'm glad you mentioned, kind of like the Greater Rift wall for, a certain part of that, or a certain version of that build. So I guess the question that always remains is, will any of that stuff you're talking about unseat Marauders? Will we see something rise to the top for DHs?
Well,
I think Unhallowed Essences might, but go ahead, Nineball.
Yeah, I was just about to say, a lot of the conversations that I've seen about the Demon Hunter in the new sets is that Marauders is still on top. Although the Natalia's set competes with it in terms of damage, it doesn't give you the survivability that Marauders does. Because one of the most popular ones with Nats is actually still running 2-piece Marauders, so you get all of the pets. So you get that little bit of as you get that little bit of resistance buff. You have a taunt, with the boar that you can go through and get off, as well as just the hatred regeneration for strafe. But yeah, it seems that Marauders still is up there just because you have that extra level of survivability. You have the passive bonus from all of your pets, but you can also be a little bit more disengaged from the enemy and let your turrets go through and do the work.
The one caveat with the UE, what is it? Unhallowed Essences is the new set, the multi-shot set, which I'm still pissed that it only works with multi-shot. I would like it to work with different things also. At least obviously Impale and Rapid Fire would be obvious. I can't imagine any set ever making Impale usable or viable, or Rapid Fire, but at least it'd be fun to play with it. But anyway.
What if you made it an item where Impale hits every enemy on the screen?
Well, then you've got every other Demon Hunter skill. I mean, kind of the whole point of Impale, right? I mean, obviously you could make Impale. Okay, I'll shoot out 10 Impales at once, Okay, then it's Guided Fan of Knives, but I guess it'd be cool, but in terms of not making Impale viable without totally changing the skill, basically it's Cluster Arrow without the AoE, right?
Yeah.
And Cluster Arrow is by far the best skill because it has AoE, so I don't know what the point in Impale is. But I did test, in the most recent version, I did test the Unhallowed Essences skill, and I was able to do a GR38 very easily. And this is with my I copied over my character who's done GR40 in Marauders, and without anywhere near as min-maxed of gear in my Unhallowed Essences, basically just what I just found and a little bit of enchanting on. I ran a 38 in 9 minutes. So that only don't have the good quiver. I don't have a Dead Man's Legacy on this character yet, which is by far the best quiver for it.
Oh, for sure.
Don't have all the damage buffs. Don't have everything. And I was doing 1.5 billion crits with multi-shot.
Wow.
Just easily. So I think that set is potentially. It's the weird part is you don't know what to do with yourself. You're so used to Marauder. You played Demon Hunter some, right, Nineball?
Just a little.
But so much of what you're doing is you just have this timer in your head of when you're casting your next sentry, and where you're spacing it, And most people use the polar sentries, polar station, where you get the CC, and obviously that synergizes with Cull of the Week, and the
Bane of the Trap.
Bane of the Trap. And I was still using polar sentry with the UE, and just sort of, even without the Bombardier's quiver, you still can drop 2 of them, and it gives you the giant damage buff. Plus, it's a nice CC effect. I don't really see what the complementary skill with multi-shot is. Maybe someone will find something better. Like, I was trying to see if you could use a defensive thing or march for death or whatever, and it didn't seem to really work that well. Caltrops, spike traps. So maybe someone will find something really clever. But in the meantime, I was just using polar sentry for that.
Yeah, it just is kind of like just being able to spread out the Bane of the Trap debuff, just because it's the most powerful gem that's out there at the moment.
Yeah, and you also have a 20%. Demon Hunter has a passive that adds 20% damage to enemies that are slowed. So you're like, with a good level on your Bane of the Trap, you're at like 50% plus damage on that. So it's just gigantic. And it gives you something to do in between. But my point is, I don't really know what to do when I'm between shooting my multi-shots. I'm so used to with Marauders where you're constantly casting new sentries. And if you don't have sentries to cast, you're just kind of standing around like, well, what else am I doing? It's like, the analogy I used in the past, it's like if you're used to driving a stick shift and you get an automatic and your right hand is like, where I need a lever.
Right.
And your left foot is like, I need something to do here. Like, you're so used to doing more while you're driving, and you have very fewer controls.
Yeah,
and for that I blame John Yang.
But I think that's kind of what I would honestly say, that they probably consider that mission accomplished, just because it's a different playstyle. So for someone that wants to be kind of multitasking ardently, who wants to be in control of every single thing that they're doing on screen, it sounds like they would be more catered towards Marauders. And we're not even we're just accepting the whole power issue at this point, because the players that will gravitate towards power are just going to go power anyways. But when we're talking just playstyles, then maybe the multi-shot set is there for someone who wants to just concentrate on, okay, I have my one skill that is just like the damage outputter, and everything else maybe is like a buff or like a situational, etc. So there's less thinking, and maybe that's your Netflix build. That's what you play when you're a little drunk or you're a little distracted or whatever. So I think it's good that they represent different levels of concentration, or different levels of APM, if you will.
I like that. That's your Netflix build.
Yeah,
should copyright that one.
Copyright that. I'm on it.
So Crusader fans can use that one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Ooh.
Hey man, just don't be jealous just because we can clear them T6 rifts super fast and not even care about if we die because we have like 18 cheat deaths.
Exactly.
That's how we roll.
So, continuing my never new story here, after the PTR stuff, I was thinking, it's getting close to the end of the season, and I don't have card-based trading games to play instead. I should try to run a little bit higher grader rifts, much like you did, Katniss, and then bad things happened. But so I was thinking, I did a 40 weeks ago. I should try to get a little higher, and I looked at the greater rift leaderboards for season 2 hardcore, and there's like a 49 now. I'm like, Jesus Christ! The second place was 47. There's lots of 45s and 44s. When I first did a 40, I think I was like, I was in the top 50. I'm now like 277, It's like, oh my God, exiled. So I thought I should start playing a little more and maybe try to push a little higher level. And plus, obviously that's more of an issue if you're hardcore, but toward the end of a season, who cares, right? Because you're going to be, you're going to turn it all anyway.
For sure.
And so I started getting into there, and I had a couple of fairly obvious potential gear upgrades. I wasn't, I was far from perfect gear BIS forever. My amulet most obviously, but I also didn't have that great of a bow. And so I was playing some yesterday, thinking about, I was doing some mid 35, some 35, 36, 37 riffs kind of thing, just for the massive experience partially. And I found a really good bow, a much better bow than I had. The God, is it Manticore or Bariza that has the piercing? Gives you 2 pierces on projectiles.
Bariza.
The Bariza.
Yeah, yes, Bariza. That is. Yeah, I should remember the burrito cannon from Diablo 2 days.
Right? Yeah, man.
And I found a really high roll ancient one with really good stats, and I was able to use a gift, and then I turned area damage or some crap like that into the 10% damage ED. And it was a big upgrade over the arcane barb that I had been using part time. Plus, it has that extra legendary proc, which I'm really confused about, by the way. I should look up for information on that, but. It says your projectiles will pierce, 1 or 2 times. Mine is 2 because it's a perfect bow because I'm a perfect person and that's what I deserve. And it does not triple all your damage. I mean, quite obviously, it does not triple damage. It's definitely an increase. You can kind of see your little squiggly things doing a few more squiggles. And I tried it with Hungering Arrow just kind of for shits and giggles. And it definitely pierces many, many times with that. But of course, all generators are totally beside the point with M6 because 98% of your damage comes from your cluster or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I mean, it's obviously good. It's better. It's not obviously not triple the damage you were doing beforehand. So I'm not really sure how that works. But anyway, I got that, and then immediately my other biggest gear upgrade was my amulet, and I was using cold with the cold cluster, and my amulet wasn't great. It was, I don't know, dex and like 98% crit chance and cold, but it didn't have, obviously ideally you want, as Katniss, all your gear is ideal, right? So you want CC, CD, and elemental and socket is your dream amulet.
Absolutely.
And and you'll settle for main stat on one of those, but you really want both. And then immediately in the game, I found a physical that was like 20, 9.5, and a socket. And then, of course, I rolled the 4 stat and got 99% critical hit damage like on the 3rd try. So I'm like, okay, this is obviously a sign. And if you're a demon hunter playing M6, you can change from physical to cold by just switching your bracers and your amulet. And it's very easy to fit the bracers because you're basically using Reaper wraps. So you just go craft a few. Hey, new bracers, I'm ready to roll. One of the many ways that they should just be called Demon Hunter 3, right? It's today's. We're gonna get to that whole tavern talk thing later, right?
Yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah.
So anyway, I played that. I'll hurry the story along a little as our Twitch numbers are dropping rapidly. And someone in Twitch says I like to talk. Actually, I never get to talk on my own podcast. All I do is ask questions on my podcast. So I'm enjoying the opportunity here. much
you did open up the stream. You lied.
Yeah,
I'm looking.
I'm looking at the corner. There's like little smiley faces on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we see what you're saying. Someone just said I agree with Manira. Who the hell's Minerva? Oh, that's another chatter. Anyway, so I immediately found this physical. One of the questions I had for you guys about this thing. This story has multiple parts, but it opens up for conversation more because I'm like that. If you have immunity amulets, how long before you learn to trust them and know they are there? Because I had an arcane immunity amulet. It took me about a week before I realized, okay, I can just stand an arcane and it's not a worry.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you switch one, like for farming runs, or maybe you have a better amulet for higher levels, suddenly you have to remember, okay, I can't stand in Molten now or I will die forever. Have you guys had that issue?
Dude, I had a Countess Julia's, which is the arcane immunity one, all of season 1. Like, it was my main amulet, and I only took it off to do Greater Rifts because I had, like, a super secret build that used a different amulet. It's not secret at all. But I would actually, this season, just stand in Arcane because I was like, yeah, it's just like farming T6 like I always do. And I'd look at my health like, why is my health dropping so much? Like, what is going on? It's easily the most noobish, like, thing I would do. But if I zoned out, I would just think that I was still using that same Crusader. So I totally vibe with you there. You don't learn it. You don't unlearn some of those habits when you pick them up.
Yeah, definitely. I remember for a pretty good period of time in season 1, I had the poison amulet, and that was just one of those. Oh, I don't care. I don't care about poison or like little toxic pools and stuff like that, and would actually go and hunt them out because it just gives you that little bit of healing factor to help you stay in the fight. And yeah, that was when I replaced it. It caused me problems because I think I replaced it around the same time that I replaced my my Krelm's bracers, so I had to relearn what knockback mechanics were, as well as that vortex was a thing.
Well,
and
it's like a brand new world for you.
Yeah, and then I couldn't stand in poison. I was like, "What is this? This isn't the game that I was been playing."
And that was me last night. I had the Countess Julia's because I had it because you had a Leviathan. You're my hero, so I wanted to copy what you were doing. And I was used to just standing in Arcane, merrily, no worries, etc. And the new one I found was a Haunt of Vaxo, which has a useless legendary property, but
incredibly,
yeah, totally useless. It makes haunts that do nothing. Much of my first marriage. But I had, of course. So after I got I tried a little bit of I was in a 4-player party when I actually found the amulet, the physical amulet, and I switched over my build in the middle of that, and then ran a couple of T6s with the physical, saying, "Oh, how does this compare?" But of course, you can't really judge, how effective you are in a 4-player, T6 Rift. So I went and played solo for a while, and I was doing some GR35s to try to get a sense for it, because T6 was way too easy, because I'm just like super puffed that way. And immediately I got one, like the first one I tried, I got the Act 1. The graveyard crypts areas where they're kind of the narrow hallways, like the Jar of Souls kind of thing.
Yeah, yep.
And like the first boss I get in one of them is Waller, Arcane Orb, Frozen Orb, Waller, Frozen Orb, Arcane, and something else, like Thunderstorm, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And ordinarily, remember when Waller was scary back in the day? It would make like this big U shape, and like the boss would be at the edge of it, and there was no opening in it, and you were just like stuck there.
Yes.
Remember like vanilla, like when Demon Hunters died constantly?
It's terrifying.
And now they make them, and there's usually a little crack in the corner. You kind of sneak out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I got this in these little narrow walkways in that crypt, and there was no crack in the corner, and I'm at the back edge of it shooting, and there's arcanes turning, and I'm like, wait, something's different about my character now. Oh yeah, I'm gonna die in 1 second. If I don't move. And it was the frickin' frozen orbs. Like I found a safe spot in the corner of the waller, and then the frozen orb just like lands, and it does a little Pac-Man ghost thing, and just comes at you. I'm like, okay, this is really bad, and I can't go through the walls. I actually had to move into the arcane to lose some health so I could drink my Kool-Aid potion and run through the wall to get out of it. And I was like hella scared. I just hit the zoom key by accident in the meantime, and I'm like, I'm staring at my own shoulder pads trying to run through this. I'm like, which button did I hit? It was very scary. I'm like, if I die the first game with this new amulet, I'm be really pissed off.
Dude, I do that all the time. Like, if I start to get flustered, I'll hit like keys that are close to what I'm trying to hit, and then like tab is there, so I'll open the map. No, I didn't want the map. Like, it just gets worse and worse.
But that reminds me of when I lost my first hardcore demon hunter. It's like I hit every single key on my keyboard except the one that had smoke screen on it.
Mm-hmm. I actually remapped my Z key away from zoom because I use ASDF for my my main skills.
Mm-hmm.
And you're constantly hitting shift with your pinky non-stop with a demon hunter. And I have other hotkeys on C, V, and B. And Z was just sort of there like a lingering monster. Like a Leviathan waiting beneath the sea to consume me by accident.
Ooh, see what you did there.
So I put it on. I don't know, Shift F12 or something. I'll never ever hit on purpose again. Because have you ever used zoom on purpose? And except for occasional screenshots,
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I have one last little thing on my Demon Hunter story.
Oh, hit me. Okay.
It goes on.
Yes.
It never. That was probably you guys had a chance to talk about other stuff.
Is your character's name Odysseus, by the way?
No, but there's a siren on the rocks. But we could tie you to the mast though if you'd like, Nineball.
That sounds like fun.
And
as long as I can play X-Wing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course you can. So immediately, I did a few. I moved up a little higher, thinking, okay, this is pretty powerful. I did 4 GR38 runs in a row, no problem. Did one of them in 7 minutes. I'm like, okay, I can obviously go higher than 40. And immediately found, in a couple of other games later, a perfect blank amulet, which had 9.5 crit chance, 98% critical hit damage, and a socket. Which means you can roll the other thing to whatever you want and choose the elemental power of your choice. It is an Eye of Etlich, so it also is really a nice buff to reduces your trap times.
That's the secret amulet. Don't tell people about this.
And it's like 35% missile damage decrease as well, which is all you care about with a Demon Hunter, right? So I can make that a cold amulet and go back to cold if I want now. So now I have 2 choices. And so possibly tonight or before the end of the season, I can compare physical and cold. I actually have better bracers for cold. I have a nice ancient roll on my Reaper's Wraps. And I can do one or the other, and I will definitely try to get up into the mid-40s. And if I die, I will die. And what was your best Crusader one, Leviathan?
43. Right.
Yeah, so your head's on the chopping block there, dude.
Yep.
And what is your best score in X-Wing, Nineball?
I won?
Yeah, no one cares. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was comparing. We were doing our little EP there. Of course, what's the highest Demon Hunter time versus Crusader? Like 5 rifts higher, probably. So.
2 only. If it's 49 for Demon Hunters, Crusaders have 47, so it's not bad.
There's only 149. When I looked yesterday, the next one there was like 147 and then a bunch of 46s or something like that. So the 49 was a total outlier.
Yeah, same for the 47.
Related topic. I had a question for you guys on this. Have you pushed higher rifts, and how much can you say? So for instance, say your character could do 35s pretty comfortably, right? So you're doing 35s in, I don't know, 10 to 12 minutes, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
What would you expect your results to be on, say, 38 or 40? Is it like 20 seconds more per greater rift? Or does it vary so much in randomization you really couldn't tell?
I would go with the latter. I would say because, and I guess it depends. A, it depends on your class, and B, it depends on your build. Because for Crusaders running Condemned, there are very specific greater rifts that like those are the ones that are providing those outliers. Those are the ones that are actually like making your times look ridiculous, because you get a certain map that just opens up everything for you. You're like blazing through, because the whole purpose is just to not stop. So as long as you're collecting more monsters, killing more monsters, then you're going to exceed the time. So I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, you would have to average them out, and I guess per average maybe like a minute going up. I haven't analyzed it that far, so I don't know, but I wouldn't expect it to vary that much from like 35 to 38, but from like 35 to 40, I would imagine quite a bit of slowdown, just because there's more HP.
Have you ever pushed that Nineball?
I've not really pushed it anywhere as far as either of you have, but one of the things that I've at least noticed with just my character, going through the early 30s, is that you will reach a point that you might be able to clear one in like 10 minutes, and then you go up, a next level and you can clear it in 11, but then you go up to the next one and then you're struggling. Because there always is going to be this point where it takes like an extra activation or an extra 2 activations of your skill in order to kill things. And even though, it's like you take that mob down with like a single shot, you take it down to just like the 5% health. That means you have to cast, cluster arrow, or you have to give it your fetishes a little bit more time, or you have to cast one more condemn, and it just sucks up, that a little bit of time for every single mob pack that you go through. And it is when you hit that point is when your progression kind of stops from a damage aspect, not so much the survivability aspect that might keep you back and have you playing safe.
And that was when you said your A and B points there, Caddis, I was waiting for point C is if you're hardcore. Because the fact that death is not a 5-second delay, it's a 6-week delay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really makes a difference in terms of, I've done greater rifts on softcore on the PTR, pushing into the mid-40s, and it becomes a real issue eventually. I was always glass cannon-y. I was in with the Demon Hunter mostly, using fire and multi-shot for a while, and I would easily have the killing time to do the rift in 8 or 10 minutes, but I kept dying, and so eventually that you're getting 30-second delays when you die, and it's really a glass cannon issue where you have plenty of offense, but you just have to get a rift or you're not going to die that much or something. And that is obviously not at all what we can do in hardcore, So
Right.
It totally changes the whole paradigm of. I mean, I could probably do much higher. It's hard to say because you're gearing differently in the first place. You have lower DPS than you would. But the whole point of I could probably kill this, but it might kill me, and therefore have to play a little more conservatively, and therefore it'll take longer. I think makes it really hard to figure. So I don't have an answer to that question. The whole, if you could do 30 now, how much slower is 33 or 36 going to be on average?
Mm-hmm.
It might be eternally slower if you're hardcore, so it's really hard. It gets dangerous, especially I mean, sort of the general thing in hardcore is if you're going above 35, you better have double unity.
Yeah.
And if you get in the 40s, it's like you better be goddamn careful and have double unity because you can easily get. I mean, I almost died in a 38 just fooling around yesterday. My stupid story there, right? So.
Right. Well, I mean,
you can get one bad thing and you're done forever.
For sure. I mean, 30, for a real life example, like you were saying, I've cleared a 43. But I was doing 38s just to level up gems, and that was when I disconnected and I died. And it's never even like I didn't change my gear so much that I was like, oh, I want to really like speed through this. I was still playing very safely because it doesn't make sense. I don't need a clear time on 38 since I've cleared 38. So I would rather play for defense, and if I don't make the time, I'm not trying to upgrade my keystone. I'm just trying to upgrade the gem anyways. But yeah, it makes a great point that in hardcore, there's going to be a different mentality. Like you have to pretty much always sacrifice DPS gains or sacrifice speed in order to provide for safety and eventual clearance, and that's when you kind of start to look for those circumstances that best suit your class or your build. And a corollary point on that I wanted to bring up, now we do know that Season 2 is going to end April 5th. They announced that sometime last week. And we found out that Season 3 will begin on April 10th. So it seems that patch 2.2 is very likely slotted for April 7th, which is that Tuesday.
Yep. And
one thing I did want to bring up, so...
The Blue Post actually confirmed that, by the way, so yeah.
Oh, sweet. Then now we know. So the one thing that kind of bugged me about this, and I want you guys' opinions as well, as a hardcore player, not knowing that the season is going to be this short, I think that kind of is a disservice to that playstyle, because if you die in a short season, that matters way more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it has a huge impact on your character, because at that point, if you die early on in the season, or I guess it would have more of an impact later on in the season when you're trying to make that push, and you didn't know that it was going to end, in 2.5 months, and you're 2 months in, and you go through and you lose your character, and then all of a sudden, you have a 2-week notice before the end of the season. It's like, am I even going to get geared enough to be where I was in these 2 weeks, in order to make a final push? Or was my final push 2 weeks before the season was over?
Or on the other hand, you could say it has less effect because you only got to wait 3 weeks for a new season to start, and you might as well just do something else like play X-Wing card games.
There it is.
Is that joke ever going to get old? Probably not.
No. No, it isn't, because X-Wing is a good game. I love it.
Awesome. Is it based on Star Wars, by the way? I'm assuming that's where the name comes from.
Yes, you put 2 and 2 together there. I am proud of it.
And Levi over there is like, X what?
Star Wars? Is that
Star
like
what?
is that the thing of Kirk?
Never heard of it. But yeah, so
Okay,
I don't.
So the last thing on my Demon Hunter story. No, I'm kidding. It's
Just to kind of.
We are 40 minutes in. Great. Finally finished with our weekend
gaming or year in gaming.
that's point 1 of our 12-point podcast.
But yeah, in any case, I don't know. I just wanted to air that. Like, I think knowing the full length of a season does have some merit, and it's a question that we were batting around more in season 1 than season 2. Maybe just because we didn't have enough time to do it within season 2. But I think having the length ahead of time, and I know that's something that they don't want to give us because it ties them to a certain production schedule, and it makes so if there is a snafu and they can't get patch 2.3 out in time, then they have to say, oh well, season 4 is coming anyways because we said season 3 has to end at XY time or day or whatever have you. But I don't know. I guess maybe this is a moot point anyways because this season is a outlier in terms of shortness and season 1 is an outlier in terms of longness. I imagine it'll average out to something between the two, so like a 3.5 month season or something.
It's funny that you should mention that because that's actually one of the things they talked about on the Tavern Talk.
Would you like to talk about the Tavern Talk?
I would like to talk about the Tavern Talk. Flux, would you like to talk about the Tavern Talk?
No, I want to tell our Demon Hunter stories.
Oh well, then continue.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I have notes on the Tavern Talk. I had 2 thoughts on the season length thing, by the way. One of the things that came up on the podcast that I recorded last Sunday, both guests seemed pretty. We were saying, why is season 2 so short? And Blizzard was like, well, this is when the patch was ready. I'm like, why did they just wait, 3 weeks longer to start the PTR? They all could have gone to Cancun or worked on the expansion pack, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they could have done something else. They weren't obligated to put it. We were all kind of shocked that the PTR went up so soon after the patch went up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
oh yeah,
at least I was.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they didn't want to have another 4-month PTR, but just wait another month before you start the PTR. And then they could have obviously done a little more internal testing, maybe not had the Barbarian IK set at 14,000% damage and the 6-piece bonus just to piss people off when they nerfed it, right? I mean, that maybe that little bit of internal testing could have taken care of that problem. But anyway, the theory of both the guests on the last podcast was that they were rushing to get this done because they wanted to go work. They're working on the expansion or some big announcement, and they wanted to get the season over with and move on to other things really quickly. And then, of course, in the Tavern Talk, all their thing was, yeah, we're ready to work on season 3, and we're doing 3 more item sets for the other 3 classes that we don't love, and not any hint of we're rushing to finish this because we have some big secret project underway. It was, yeah, we just want to work on the next season. So I was a little surprised to hear that in the Tavern Talk myself.
I guess, but I hear you, but I'm not even that surprised because I don't think they're ready to tip that hat yet. Like, what do they gain by telling us that there's something that they can't talk about happening? More
they're Blizzard, dude. If they didn't have that, what would they have? The whole point in working at Blizzard is so you could say we have things we can't talk about yet.
Which I'm sure they do. It's just a much like inner circle audience that's getting that spiel right now. But at some point, I'm sure we will too. Maybe at a Gamescom or something. But I just don't think the timing is right yet. Because if you talk about it too early, then you run into that same issue where people have been complaining like, oh, why did patch 2.1.2 take so long to get here? And you were telling us about, the new sets in 2.2 way back at BlizzCon. So like if you start to make promises too early, if you start to divulge info too early, you do kind of lose some of that hype that you gain from just opening up about it.
Yeah, and then, I guess that also kind of ties in that they are stating that the seasons are dictated by their development cycle, and they want to go through and have the seasons out every 3 to 4 months. If that's the case of they're not holding anything back and they're all just putting everything into the content patches, then they're never going to have an expansion because it's always just going to be content patch after content patch at the rate that they intend to start pushing things out.
All right, so we actually did say we wanted to talk about the Tavern Talk, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I have several points on that if you guys don't.
Yeah, I'm actually going through and looking up something here because that clicked something in my mind, and just going through and looking at it, that actually isn't even all that bad because they had the final Diablo 3 patch, the 10.8. or
1.0.8.
1.0.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, which they went through and they added a whole bunch of new things, and we got all of the new crafting, items that were put in. They changed a lot of that was that was a really big patch.
That was a density patch as well.
Yeah, and then the Reaper of Soul announcement was a little over 3 months later. So it could, that could still go through and follow with it, where they have a big content patch, and then
a season rolls by.
Then a season rolls through, and then they have a season. Then they have a expansion announcement. I think you probably won't see much in terms of content after the season or after the expansion's announced. Hopefully, we don't get like a year-long season, something that the WoW team does, and you get 2 years of one raid because we're working on the expansion now, so we can't create any more content. So we'll have to see how they juggle that once we get to that point.
Well,
if we get to that point.
And if I could rib on this tinfoil hat theory a little bit harder, if you look at an April 10th starting date, extrapolate 4 months, 3.5 months, 3 months from that, and that lands you right in like late July, early August, and Gamescom. Very soon thereafter. So,
but why? This came up on the podcast I did Sunday as well. Why would the pace of seasons have anything to do with the announcement of a new game? With the release of a new game, sure. Obviously, you don't want to be mid-season when a game comes out, right? But why would that? How would that relate to when they might announce or not announce the product?
Oh, I'm sure that the product announcement itself is going to be tied to the development cycle, because it's.
But it doesn't matter if it's the start or the middle or the end of a season for that, though, right?
I guess not so much, but in terms of the content that they've been able to put into it to make it showable.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't care. And I've said the same 3 times. I'll stop. But the other. Speaking of tinfoil hat stuff, you kind of mentioned that. That was another thought we had, that season 1 was like 5 months, and then they wanted to be around 3 to 4 months per season. So therefore, season 2 was 2 months to get the average back down close to that, because they have some long-term goal where season 5 is supposed to be on date X, and that's when something's big is going to happen, right? Or season 6 or whatever that the case may be.
Coincide with some release or something.
Yeah, so they had to make season 2 really fast in order to get back closer to their 3 or 3.5 months apiece, because long down the road, basically 7th dimensional chess. Magic will happen someday, and something has to be made to set up that, etc. Related topic: how come we only have the same 3 developers we ever see anymore? We haven't seen Josh do anything except for that GDC talk in a year. We never see anybody, any of the sound guys, any of the art guys. Obviously, we get the same. We get Travis. We haven't seen Kevin Martins in public since BlizzCon. Ever. There's other guys, Leonard Boyarsky. There's lots of other main developers on Diablo 3 that we see at BlizzCon panels, and all we ever see on these Tavern talks and the live streams are John and Wyatt and occasionally Don Vu, right? And we get Travis here.
Right.
And obviously, I'm not complaining about their quality. I mean, Travis's gleaming head really just haunts my dreams. But we don't, there's a lot of other developers who you would think they'll all be taking turns, unless maybe all the other guys are not really keeping up with the current game and they're furiously grinding on something they can't talk about yet.
I think that's a possible theory.
Well, it's definitely a possible theory, but is it bullshit or not?
Yeah, I'd just have to go through and say, just look at the reaction that came from the Tavern talk from a lot of people. Got rather salty about
raging hatred.
Yes, from some of the responses, when the developers are going through and they have 50 different iterations of different set bonuses and swapping things around and changing them completely, and they don't correctly remember the exact order of one out of their 12-15 sets and which iteration it is that was put to the PTR that never actually finished development or testing, and then everybody just lays into them. That's kind of like the expectation. If you're a developer and you're going to go in front of a camera, you better be playing a Crusader and have iron skin on, because just the backlash that you're going to get no matter what it is that you say. And I can from just things that we've seen, like the developers interaction with the community is kind of it's an opt-in. They do it if they want to, and given the kind of vitriol that's kind of thrown at them whenever they appear and talk in public, I don't hold it against them for not wanting to go out there and do it.
Yeah, and let me follow along on that too. I don't disagree. I think also something to consider is that look at the people who do anything that has to do with the public. Like, some people are just better at it, right? Like, not everyone has a podcast because not everyone can podcast. And I think
that doesn't stop me, dude.
but you're good at it. I think that's what happens. Like, they have developers that are just good at communicating with the community, and so they are likely going to be tapped for those opportunities more often than someone who is actually maybe admittedly shy or doesn't have like the right presence or doesn't think as quickly on their feet in order to give an answer. Because think about putting yourself. Let's just say you put yourself in the middle of, like, I don't know, Times Square for 90 minutes, and like people cared enough that they were going to come and bombard you with questions. Like, if you're not ready for that, like, that is not a place you should be. That is not something they would want to throw you into the middle of. So I guess that's my theory on why we just see a few people, because they're best suited for it.
But then taking that, though, then people are going to question, oh, then why did you put Travis Day and Wyatt Chang in the Tavern talk?
Because they're suited for it. I think anyone that's upset with their answers, like, isn't thinking clearly. Like, they aren't looking at the big picture. They don't have to know the minutia of every single thing. And again, like, some of the stuff that they often talk about is, the idea that they're working on multiple things at the same time. And we've been hinting at it too. Like, maybe an expansion is something they're heavily working on and they're just not talking about it. If that's the case, then I'm concerned about, like, set XXX triple X set over here. I don't know why those were the letters I chose, but I'm worried about
what's on your mind.
Yeah, totally. Well, you said Wyatt, so I'm talking about, like, and thinking about stuff that is so far in development but like so secret that I might honestly not have an idea what got changed in the PTR on that build, and at the same time what we are testing is sometimes not the current build that they are testing. So you have to forgive humans for being humans. Like, they are not always going to have the exact answer at that exact moment. And you also have to factor in that these are random questions that they don't necessarily have prepared answers for.
Well, I guess your check cleared this week, huh, dude?
I hate to see, like, people get unfairly bashed for things that, like, they may or may not have control over. Like, if you want them to, like, study the game all day, every day, then they're not going to be developing things, because they're going to be memorizing, like, the flavor text.
They're busy making a game.
Yeah,
they don't play the game for 10 hours a day. They're like doing something with their lives, unlike the rest of us.
Right. And some of them do play a lot too. Like, some of them play a lot and also work on the game a lot. But I think you do have to give some, like, level of respect just to the fact that I feel like I studied the game and I couldn't tell you, like, the effects on every single set that's in PTR right now.
This reminds me of one of the things I actually kind of wanted to do, for the show, but after an hour-long week in gaming, I'm kind of glad I didn't. I want to test you all, like, name that set, like, list off a set bonus and see if you could actually, pick which set it was for and which piece it was.
If it's a Demon Hunter or Monk set, yes. Other than that, that's my thing, is, like, there's all these fans who are, like, totally expert on one or two classes, and they're pissed if the developer who doesn't know every single class exactly as well as they know the one class they play for 9 hours a day. I mean, if you start asking me questions about, like, the subtleties of which Dr. Helm does which, say that 3 times fast, I'm like, Quetzalcoatl, that one. I don't know. I don't play Witch Doctors much, I mean, I don't know shit about Crusaders. And Katniss, you'd probably be out of luck if we got into questions about some classes you're not doing a whole lot of. But
about
Wizard.
Any class besides the Crusader.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I probably could go into Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 stuff better than some Diablo 3 stuff at this point. I haven't played those games in 8 years, but it's just, you remember, they were just vast and complicated.
Which piece of the Saigon set gave the +1 skill bonus?
Saigon set is in China. That's not a real set in Diablo 3. It's a trick question. I saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm. What's the shield, by the way?
Which color was Talrosh's set in Diablo 3 and Diablo 2?
Purple.
Oh, there you go. So very, very distinctive.
Only because we, like, just had that.
Yeah, that was just a conversation we had a couple days ago.
There you go.
For those who aren't fully aware, we're talking about the Tavern talk that occurred on Monday afternoon / evening, depending on where you're located. The developers there were John Yang, Wyatt Cheng, and Travis Day, and Nevelistus was doing the hosting. And they literally sat there for 90 minutes just taking questions from Twitch chat. So whoever was there could just throw out a question, and there was someone behind the scenes pulling questions and putting them up on a little graphic, and the devs would just talk about stuff. And so one of the things that we keenly observed shortly thereafter was that the community went absolutely insane, based on, as far as I can tell, loving John Yang's answers and perhaps his enthusiasm for the game, and hating Travis Day's answers and some of the mood and connotations that he had in his personality, I guess. And I was talking to a few people about it last night, and one of the things they were noting was that it just seemed like John was so like keen on like, I want to fix everything right now. And he was kind of the guy, like, I compared it to Travis almost a year plus ago when he kind of came in as the, I want to fix all the legendary items. I want you guys to find exciting stuff. I want items to be important and powerful. And everyone was super stoked on Travis, and then the items got better, but not all of them all at once. And it kind of seems that that's recurring now with John Yang. Like, he's saying, I want, all the items to have awesome powers, and we want to get it all in 2.3. And then Travis comes in with the realistic hammer, and he says, get down, you gopher. Like, this is kind of crazy to promise something like that. We're definitely giving the players more, but we can't guarantee everything will be fixed by 2.3. And I think people were just like flipping their lids because like they're like, what? He doesn't want to fix everything? That wasn't what he was saying. He was just being realistic about the development. And I guess maybe people have always commented on the fact that the development for Diablo 3 in patches seems slow, but I don't know. Your guys' thoughts?
I've interviewed Travis one-on-one the last two BlizzCons for half an hour each. He was the dev assigned to my interview. And he's not afraid to tell you that you're full of shit and or wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of his personality. He's not Bill Roper, let's just say. He's not going to sell snow to Eskimos, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He will just be like, that's a good idea, but it wouldn't work in the game, and here's why. And he's like, I mean, not that he's like rude or whatever, but he's not afraid to tell you that your idea is not going to work and why it won't work. And I don't know if he's quite that realistic. You don't quite get that vibe on the Tavern Talk thing, but having interacted with him across a small table in a room by ourselves, with soft music and warm cushions and his smooth skull,
the aroma,
ambience.
Yes, and his head is even smoother in person. You can't believe it. You just want to touch it. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Speaking of XXX and Wyatt Chang, huh?
We all have our flames.
So what were you saying, Nineball? He's like, I have no idea, dude. I can't follow that.
You lost me. Now I'm just picturing, Travis Day's cranium. But
I think we're all picturing that right now, Nineball.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really like about Travis Day, and a lot of the candid things that he's gone and talked about is just like you said, he's not afraid to say that this is a bad idea or this is never going to happen, and that's just kind of the player's aspect. I don't really want to say like it's entitled, but a lot of the player base thinks that we deserve this, or this should happen, or this is my idea and it's better than yours. And when you have one of the developers that just kind of comes up and gives a non 100% PR scripted thing and just kind of like looks you straight in the eyes and says, no, that's a bad idea, people get offended by it. And I can see where some of that hatred's coming from, although I think it's a bit unfounded.
Yeah.
If you want founded hatred, you're in the wrong place. We're near BattleNet.
I want my hatred to have a foundation.
Off the
I want
internet.
to build a house on it.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Jay Wilson's famous T-shirt from 2008 BlizzCon was? A city built on rock and roll would be structurally unsound.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's one of those old pictures of him. Anyway, he was wearing that all around BlizzCon one day. The whole we built the city on rock and roll, a Journey or some band like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's referencing that horrible song in his shirt, and it reminded me of what you were saying there. And no one gets the joke but me. Moving on.
All right, so let's talk about specific topics from the Tavern Talk. Realm of Trials.
I was going to say, I have a quick one. I have Realm of Trials related to one of the guy's question about if you can just convert 3 gems you don't want into 1 gem that you do want. Both of those, they're like, that's an idea, and it's just same thing with Realm of Trials. People are like, why can't we just get 10 keys at once if we want to? Well, that's an idea that would work, but why do they have to have overcomplicated multi-part solutions to things that take 12 months to implement, when there seems to be a very simple, direct, straightforward Band-Aid solution they could put in now that would stop the bitching until they have the super multi-part solution ready in 8 months? Nineball.
I guess, probably just because it's not as easy of a solution as people would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the blood shard cap. If you think about it, there are infinite answers to the question of how can I make the blood shard cap higher, and they literally could have just had us log in one day, and all of a sudden you can pick up 1,000. But they came up with an idea that I haven't seen anybody say I hate this idea, and I think it works. It ties it to personal achievement. It tied it to solo Greater Rift achievement, which I think is excellent. So it can't be cheesed. And I think they're looking for solutions like that, solutions that make sense in terms of what they want to give to players to A, just solve the problem of the outcry, but also B, solutions that look cool in the game and like have another benefit besides just giving you what you want. I know to some degree like players like just give me what I want, but the developers do this for a living. Like they have ideas that I'm sure like we think about but don't think about in like a scheme of implementation or a scheme of like making it I don't know, just something that would fit and fit well. And you also have to think about the ripple effect. Like whenever you change one thing, it could have an adverse effect on some other part of the game. So they have a lot of things to balance at the same time.
Yeah, I think
I'm just go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest thing about it is just going to be a technical hurdle, because now you're going to have to be adding something into the game system, that it wasn't designed to do, doing multiple keys at once in order to go through and convert it. And then you're going to spend all of this time in development to make it as a Band-Aid, to only go back and remove it and replace it with something completely different. Or you could just work on that other thing instead of putting the development time into the other one.
Well, the other thing is going to be 100 times more development time, but maybe it won't be 100 times better fix. But I mean, it's not like people just started complaining about Realm of Trials yesterday. I mean, that's been the biggest complaint forever, and it just seems like a really easy, quick fix would just be, okay, you can do 10 of these at once instead of one of these at once. But they have their grand, amazing idea, and they're going to remember how. I mean, of course, I guess the counterexample would be brawling, right? They all wanted awesome PvP. Hey, we'll just put in a quick fix to PvP, and everyone hates it. Hates them even more. So,
right, there are ways to exacerbate the problem, make it worse. I mean, I think you also have to realize like live is not PTR. Like they could put in things to try them out and be like, hey, what do you think about this, and then change it the next season or whatever. But I think they look at their live environment as like this is meaningful. This is your foundation. If we want to go back to that. So whenever we put something in there, we want it to stick. We want it to build upon whatever else we have already in there, and then be another block that we can then build on top of. So if you're putting like shoddy ideas or not fully thought out ideas in there just to appease people, then yeah, you get brawling, which no one does.
But they had promised PvP within this year, and then like on like December 27th and a half, we got brawling. So there it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to PvP another hour of podcast.
And the promise is still out there that PvP will come in patch 1.1.
We're not talking about PvP tonight, Nineball. That's another hour of show.
Right.
You got to keep the train on the tracks.
So how about other points from the Tavern Talk? I noticed there were a lot of Barb questions, so I think the Barb is just going to be absolutely played. It's going to be the new Monk next season.
Well, the whole instant Greater Rift 60 thing on the PTR might have led to that a little bit, right?
Yeah. One of the things that kind of came out of the Tavern Talk was just the upsetness of people with numbers change.
Upset. They upset the Barbarian, didn't they?
A little bit.
That was actually one of the points that I was going to bring up. On that one is just that, and I saw a lot of flack for this one that they did, is that they wanted to go through and throw it out there and just have put a number and have it go and test around. They realized that the 500% bonus was just too much, so they then went and scaled it down to something that would be better, at least for the game, although not for your Greater Rift progression, of course. And that pissed people off, and the response was, it's like if you don't like having things change on a test realm where the point is for things to change, there's two ways to do about it. It's like, don't pay attention to the changes until they're finalized and it's patch day, or if we have to, everything has to be a buff and we can't nerf anything on the test realm, well then I guess we'll just start everything at just paraphrasing here, but we'll start things at 1% damage bonus and then scale up from there so everyone can have a nice happy cuddle feeling.
Right. I mean, look at think back to development for Reaper of Souls when they had the family and friends beta and stuff. The Crusader was insanely OP, and they slowly scaled all of that stuff down to more reasonable numbers, and then it actually, to some degree, shipped a little weaker, and then they started to buff it back up, but very incrementally. So they got to the realm of where they thought it would be fine, something that was reasonable for the game. And then as people started to play it more, as more people got to test it, because a beta is not live in terms of numbers, then they were able to say, okay, let's evaluate this further. But they never went back to those crazy numbers. And I think people just when they test the first thing and they fall instantly in love with it because everyone loves big crit numbers, that's not realistic. And that's all I'm pushing for. And my entire take from this Tavern Talk thing is the community just doesn't have, to me, to seem to have a lot of their ideas grounded in real, being real. It's a lot of just this is what we want and this is what we've seen. Why can't we have that?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of why can't we have that, microtransactions. Was that the most hemming and hawing question response? Well, they're not in any of our current regions, and there are new ones. And I mean, I don't disagree with any of that, but people have been saying forever, why can't we just buy more stash tabs? And initially, I remember Josh gave us some whole answer at BlizzCon about how if you just had more stash, you would just fill it up, and then you'd want more stash. It wouldn't solve anything. Apparently, it does solve it in Russia and China if you can spend money on it.
Yeah, for that, I think they gave the obvious PR answer that everyone was expecting. I'm pretty sure that they're working on it and thinking about what they have to do in order to bring it out to these realms, but it's going to be something that they have to tread very lightly on, just because of the bad taste that the Real Money Auction House left in everybody's mouth. And, obviously they won't be able to announce some big thing like that there's going to be some additional revenue stream, without it going through a whole bunch of process and appraisal for shareholder purposes.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a thing where they don't want to make the same mistake twice, right? Because PR nightmares. I feel like it's the kind of thing where it's a wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, with how much money mounts and pets and other little aesthetics things in World of Warcraft make, I think that it's just a bad business decision to not want to add things like that into Diablo, even if we don't do stash space or extra character tabs or anything along those lines. Just having the portraits or different wings. I don't know if any of you saw the video of someone that found all the data mine wings, and they put a little video together showing all the different things that they had. Some of them are really cool. One of them was actually Malthael's wings, kind of skeletal misty setup, and it's just it's kind of just free money. It's not going to impact game balance or performance in any way, and it's things that people want. So it's just, I have a feeling that it will come eventually. They just have to be careful about its presentation when they do it.
Yes, and one thing I did want to point out, Wyatt was he put his foot down, was adamant about the fact that they didn't want to sell those boosts outside of the markets where they're introducing them, and I think that was huge, just because, like you said, the cosmetics that I think most of us are looking for and wanting, the wings or the transmog sets, those are all superfluous, but they don't have a direct impact on your character's power. And when we get to that, that's the slippery slope of you're just buying it. And I think Wyatt also kind of put that stance out there that they don't like that pay-to-win model, and they don't, as Blizzard as a whole, he noted. So I think that was really good for him to reinforce that, because that could have gone down a whole different, can of worms or whatever.
But you're on a Hearthstone site, man. But you're on a Hearthstone site.
Yeah, but that's not. That's an argument we've had.
You buy extra cards.
I'm not just gonna end this conversation here.
Yeah.
Because we've had many hours dedicated to, is Hearthstone pay to win or not, and the answer is whatever you think is your own answer. There you go. But continuing on from there, one of the other things, and Minerva did go through and point out in chat, and we've talked about this before, many a times on the show in the past, is that in these different regions, I'm not so sure Russia, but definitely China, Korea, and those other places, this pay to win is the norm. That's how the games in those regions are created. That is what a person going and buying a computer game that lives in South Korea expects to go through, pick up a game, put it in, and then I can pay an extra $10 and get more out of my character. Because
the games are free in the first place.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Most of the time those games are free, and it's just expected that you have to buy the best things in the game. Blizzard, as a philosophy, doesn't like to do that, so you still have to earn the actual items themselves, but they do have to give something that you can pay for to increase your power level. Because a lot of times people don't actually own the game; they go over to the the PC, was it Bang Bong, in order to play the game at the little internet cafe where it's already pre-installed. They just log onto their account and they start playing, and that might be the one time that they play that week. So they're going to put a couple hours into it, and they want to try and get more, so they'll buy an XP boost and do it. That's just that. It's a much different mentality in those regions than it is in like the Western, the Western games. It's just over there, it's the norm, and so it is what it is.
So we have a current bonus that is an XP bonus and a gold bonus. What would you guys pay for this bonus to have it for 3 days just for you? And the other issue with that people often bring up is, what if they have their big EXP bonus on some weekend when I have to work a double shift or I'm out of town or whatever? Why can't I have this when I want it? Why can't everybody get you get 3 days of double EXP whenever you want it, as opposed to it being on the certain time that you might not be able to get into? And I will leave you with that while I go AFK for 60 seconds. So if you ask me for a snappy Jay Wilson joke, that's why you won't hear it.
Fair enough. I mean, that's the tough question, because I think we have kind of tackled something like that in the past where, it's the idea of information. Knowing what to expect in advance kind of helps you plan out your season. If you're going to take a 2-week vacation, you're kind of taking a chance that you're going to miss out on some bonus, or, if they don't announce it in the time that you can plan to, I'm actually going to move my vacation around because I don't want to miss that bonus or whatever. So there's some validity there in terms of, why can't I have it when it's useful to me? But I think it takes away from the appeal of when they do it. Obviously, the ones in the past haven't been tied to like anniversaries or anything, but this one is. So to say like, I can't play a lot during this week because it's like the end of the first quarter and I have to like do a ton of stuff at work. Sure, but that's also not like in the spirit of celebrating the anniversary.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. It's kind of like, even though there's no holidays in the game, these are like little mini holidays to go and get more out of it. Now, I've noticed that they've not done like the magic find or the legendary drop increase buffs since like the first time that they did it in Reaper and then made it permanent. They do kind of like indirect ones where you get more goblins, so you kind of indirectly get more legendaries. That it's always it's gold and experience, that even though that does kind of that those are gateways to increasing your power level, they're not as direct. This JH one time went through and did a video during season 1 and went and cleared some higher grade Rift 30s at the time when that was like really cutting edge, with no points put in any of his Paragon levels, just to show that it does make a difference, but it's not as big as kind of like what you think it is. Like every 200 levels is basically you have an extra item equipped.
Yeah, and it makes the point pretty solid, just that even if you do miss out, it's not so. Yeah, I think what I'm going to say just further sums up what you just said. So I think that point is made in terms of, if you miss it, it's not the end of the world. Maybe it feels bad. Maybe you wish you could have arranged it better so you didn't have to miss it. But, you can still salvage. It's not like your season's over because you missed one bonus weekend or something. Was there anything else in particular that you wanted to talk about from the Tavern talk?
I guess there was...
Guys, is it time to talk about Ninebeard's beard yet? I mean, Ninebeard's bald yet?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. It's always time to talk about
someone in chat said it was awesome and you should never shave it. My first reaction when I saw you at the start of the show was, you look like an ISIS video, but ironically, Katniss looks like the other half of the ISIS video, so... One of you's got a knife and one of you's got a neck, so anyway, moving along. So you're looking for additional points on the Tavern talk, are you?
Yeah, is there anything else you want to bring up?
Legendary Gym shared tab interface, do want.
So I was trying to understand that. So was the point of it just being that it's easier to equip them between a bunch of different characters, or would you actually not lose them when you die? Because I'm thinking about hardcore, obviously. And if
I
go
thought
ahead.
they were saying they were like virtual gyms, and you would just upgrade one gym for your account, and all of your characters could sort of load that, load a virtual copy of that into their gear.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it works in World of Warcraft 9-Ball? The analogy was the heirloom tab or something like that?
Yeah, that was the direct question, where now you actually have... I've not played since they've added it in, so I have no idea how it actually works, but I believe it's something along the lines where you just, you have a tab where you can click on something and it kind of generates the item for you, or it just automatically equips it for you. It's just, if you had something like that, like kind of like a little menu where you could go and say, you pop up the little screen, and just like you set your skills, you can kind of like set your legendary gems for your rings, as long as you have a socket.
What if it was like a crafting recipe? So your blacksmith or your jeweler can make a level X, Bane of the Powerful, and you just craft off. Obviously there's not a whole lot of randomization in this one at this point, but you just craft off a level 32 or whatever, right? And as when you level up with Ursi, you upgrade that level on your character, and you can make those whenever you want. That way they are on your character, and if you die in hardcore, like Katniss does sometimes, and the rest of us don't because we're super skilled, you don't lose the gem.
I don't like that idea. I feel like it takes it too far away from Greater Rifts. Because, like, the whole point, if you're in Greater Rifts, there's 2 points to it. There's climbing the leaderboards, and there's legendary gems. Because they are the delivery system for all legendary gems, even Boon of the Hoarder now for whatever reasons. But and for upgrading those gems as well. So if you then say, like, okay, and also now Blood Shard cap increases, so they're gaining more utility. But if you want to say... every time you go higher in Greater Rifts, it levels up your blacksmith to make better gems for you, then you're kind of like, I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's removing it too far from the reward of being in a Greater Rift. And to some degree, people were complaining originally Greater Rifts weren't rewarding enough. So if you kind of like start to pull things away from what they're supposed to be for, then I think you're just going to bring that problem back around.
But you would agree with what Wyatt was saying, and I agree with 100% what he was saying, that it's just a pain in the ass when you've got 6 different Bane of the Powerfuls, and you
Definitely.
which one is my highest, and
Definitely.
oh wait, the other one's on my monk, but I need to get it off my monk to use my witch doctor now, whatever, right? It's just a pain. They look exactly the same, and you've got to hover on them to see which one they are, and especially when a season ends. I have every legendary gem except like the really useless ones, like invigorating gemstone, that kind of crap. I've got them all to like 30 or higher in season 2. I just sort of for fun, I did a bunch of Greater Rift 35s and just powered them all up while I was also leveling my Demon Hunter. And I don't know if they're higher level. I'm gonna end the season. I'm gonna have like probably 8 different gems. I'm gonna have between 2 or 3 of them between 25 and 30. And it just seems kind of stupid. Of course, you'd have that anyway with seasons, right? Because you would have, even if they had that whole, if they were like recipes, like I was saying. But it's just annoying when you're importing these things at the end of the season, and you've got all this junk, and they look exactly the same, and you've got to figure out which one you're saving. Do I want to save 2? Maybe I want to put on a different character. And I'm sure we've all had the situation where you take off a piece of jewelry, and then you spend 20 minutes rooting through your entire stash trying to figure out where the goddamn gem went.
Yeah.
And then also just having to go through, if you're like changing out rings, and it's like, which one was the ring that I was using? Out of all these little icons sitting here. I'm sure, Leviathan, you've had this problem this season with your 20 million unities you've been keeping in your stash.
It's
funny. I had the exact problem with unities last night, actually, trying to figure out which one I was using. I have like 7 of them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out if I had an ancient one that I just got recently, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I finally realized it was on my goddamn witch doctor. I'm like, why? He's not even a dexterity class.
No, I definitely agree. There is that problem, and it's going to have its biggest spotlight when you're transitioning from season to season. My thought, and it looks terrible, but what if you do the same thing where on the face of a keystone you see what Greater Rift level it's tied to? What if your gem...
It looks terrible.
It would look awful if it was like, this is your 41 Bane of the Trapped, and it's got a stupid 41 on it. But there's got to be some way to express that in a faster searching way. And I mean, you guys talk about like design and beautiful things on this podcast sometimes, right? Yes.
Have you ever done a segment on the font they use for the numbers on Greater Rift keys? Like, was Comic Sans taken? What is that?
Haven't thought that deeply about it.
It's really bad graffiti. It's like someone drew it by hand, right? It looks like the work in progress version.
I've never
I'm
been
not sure
that
what I would make it look like, but I'm just occasionally you'll get a weird. I mean, I don't have an example of a weird number, but you'll see like a 9 or something like that. And it just looks really weird. Like a couple of the numbers look totally crooked. Like they look like they were all hand done. Like they're not. Like if you have a 19 and a 29 and a 39, they'll be a little bit different. Like where the numbers interact. It seems like they actually went and did those one off, and like I could see someone in Photoshop one night for like hours just dragging these things around trying to figure out where they'll look worst. I mean, best.
I have to say I've never noticed.
No, I haven't given it that much.
Well, you've never seen higher than 11, dude. You play hardcore.
I guess that's my problem.
There it is.
Yeah. I guess one
You
last
got to
thing?
party up with your friend Leviathan here one time. He can power you up to like 27.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, baby.
One last thing that I just wanted to touch on is the confirmation of cursed realms aren't a thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was more of a dodge than a confirmation one way or the other.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's something that they kind of messed around with because they didn't answer. They didn't say anything about what it was besides it was just something that they talked about and that they just kind of threw in there and was not going to be implemented.
Yeah.
So
And I mean,
it was just.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and if you think back to his exact answer too, he basically talked about cursed realms for about 2 sentences, and then jumped into a complete. He was like, "Well, there was this Russian sword, and there was this other thing." It was like they didn't actually talk about what we data mined, like the things that we saw. So to me, it seems like it's just it might be a thing. Again, it's like grain of salt, but maybe it's just not a thing that they're ready to talk about. It's similar. I was talking to Dread Scythe last night. And he was saying, they had data mined diamonds, for instance, back before BlizzCon. And then he was trying to talk to devs about it, but they, couldn't talk about it. And then eventually some news came out or whatever. They did a panel. And then they were all ready and willing to talk about diamonds. So it's like, maybe the timing just isn't there.
Well, they have bombs in their brains, right? So
this is true.
Yeah.
They're Wi-Fi connected, so they know what they can say or not say.
It's just the same as Devil's Hand. Back from when Reaper of Souls was in beta, and that was the whole big data mine thing. And we never saw anything, and then eventually we go through and learn. It's like, oh, that's just what the bounty rewards became.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, it reminds me of when you're at BlizzCon, and I think it was 2009 was when they first revealed that they were going to have the awesome PvP arena that lasted for 2 BlizzCons and was never be seen again. And they had half the demo machines were just fenced off and were dark and black, and they had big banners that had black wrappers over them. And then after the first panel, when they announced PvP, suddenly all the machines came on, and they took off the signage, and you could see all the PvP stuff. And that's kind of what you were just saying, where they have bombs in their brains and they can't talk about diamonds until they're announced officially. It's like until 11/17 today, this does not exist, and then we can talk all about it all you want. Boom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Speaking about diamonds not existing, Sapphire is confirmed. It's going to be a resource cost reduction in armor, Jim. So if you put it in your helmet, it's going to be resource cost reduction, and if you sock it in your armor, it's going to be armor.
Makes perfect sense.
But you don't need armor because you don't need that kind of symmetry, as Travis pointed out during the Tavern talk.
Having not seriously played an intelligence class before, that was one thing that I actually found very surprising while messing around with the Paragon points on my Witch Doctor. Everything else I've ever played, it's always just been, when it comes to the defensive tab, just put everything into resist and then worry about the other things later. But actually, it's like going and questioning it because I was just looking at my stats and, it's like my lowest resist is 1400 and then my armor is only at like 5000. Yeah. And just actually going and messing around, it's like, oh, the armor talent actually gives me more than the resist talent does, at this point, just because my resists are so naturally higher because of intelligence, and I had to get no armor bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as they said on the Tavern talk, it's just a math problem. So
just a math problem.
They don't want you to bother with those. People don't like math. There's too many numbers.
Which is kind of crazy because at the end of the day, like this game is a math problem. So using that as an answer to me, so this is kind of the other side of, there is going to be some criticism too. I'm not just a fanboy, by the way. To me,
until the check clears.
Correct. That was a bit of a cop-out answer, just because people are always doing math. Like that is what theory crafting is trying to determine based on what you know about mechanics and the sets and the way skills interact, etc. What is going to output the most damage, what is going to be the min-max build, etc. And those are all reliant on numbers and solving equations and formulas. So I think it's kind of haphazard to just say like, oh, we don't want math problems, but the game is math.
Time plus luck equals greater rift level.
Keep telling yourself that, dude. Speaking of haphazard, they know it's 2014 now, right? Or possibly 2015, depending on which one I read on my checks. That they know data mining's a thing, right? And that whatever they leave in whatever they leave in the build on the PTR will be discussed and dissected. I remember when the Diablo 3 beta came out and they had all kinds of stuff on there about the 2 expansion classes, and they were like, "Oh my god, no one talk about this. It doesn't exist." That was 2001 or 2000. Okay, that was you could kind of expect maybe you don't plan on everything being data mined. There are many people who do nothing but data mine games these days, right? So how do they leave, Cursed Realms on there and be like, "Oh, how did you find out about this?" And it doesn't even sound like it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It would seem like they were like actually surprised that people found out. And obviously they probably told some tech guy, take off the Cursed Realm stuff before the patch goes onto the PTR, and it didn't happen or whatever. But it does seem amazing that we can still, after in this day and age, right? There's still, oh my god, you data mined something we didn't want you to know already.
Yeah, well, I mean, they obviously know because the same patch, they made the announcement before it went to the PTR about the microtransactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the Cursed Realms really is just something that they're not terribly concerned about, and it's just going to kind of sit there and stagnate with all the Devil's Hand stuff.
It will be reborn as something else.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll just have to wait till August when they announce the expansion at Gamescom.
Yes, exactly. Reborn of Souls.
Anything else from Tavern Talk? Have we sufficiently covered it?
I think that horse is on the way to the glue factory now, yes.
Right on.
Yeah, though I do want to hear more about Flux's Demon Hunter.
That'll be next. I'll do that on my podcast on Sunday because I'm going to go play some after this tonight if I have a chance, possibly.
Well,
and I can tell you my horrible dying in GR43 story when lag, air quotes, the lag got me. I just happened to get, it had to be right next to the Vortex frozen molten, incinerator, but it was lag. That's what got me. I got disconnected. Yep. All hardcore deaths are always lag or disconnects.
Yes. And if you
100%.
If you guys want to hear more about this, perhaps in person, there will be a great opportunity to do it along with all of your favorite Blizzard friends and family and developers, because we learned that BlizzCon 2015 is happening. We hadn't yet talked about that on the show, so you'll be able to see on the screen here. We learned November 6th and 7th. 2015. There will be.
Have you planned the medical emergency that will keep you away from it this year, Nineball, or is that going to be more of a last-minute decision?
Oh, I'm already going through and scheduling like a doctor's visit, like a couple weeks prior to BlizzCon, just to make sure that there's not any, like things that pop up and prevent me from going.
Yeah, give you like a prolapsed uterus or something, you might not be able to go this time, right?
Katniss,
do you have a new job starting up, Katniss, the week before that you won't be able to go either?
Still looking for that job, but I should be able to get that done before November rolls around.
Awesome. So I'll look forward to seeing neither of you guys there again this year.
Absolutely.
Yep, count on it.
We will be there in force. I am so excited. Like I was telling Flux in the last podcast I did with him, I have the hotel nailed down thanks to Dread Scythe already.
You booked your hotel room 9 months in advance, right?
Oh yeah.
Wait, was it cheap at least?
Apparently, I think it will be, because we're cramming like 6 people in there. It's a suite though. I think it's a suite for 6 people, and we're putting 6 people in there.
It's a 6-person suite, and I think we're probably going to try and cram 16 people into it. So we're all paying about $5 a night.
It's like spring break.
Oh baby!
Yeah, except there's no girls.
Well, not yet.
There are no girls at BlizzCon. Actually, it's not as bad as it used to be, but.
They
should have become an Oscar Mayer rapper at BlizzCon the first few years. Honestly, it was just sausage fest like you've never seen.
No, that is one thing that I noticed. Obviously, I wasn't at last year's, but over the years, I have seen.
Where were you last year, man? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. This is why I've never invited a podcast, isn't it?
I got this. But it was the amount of women that have been attending the convention has increased greatly over the years. Because the first one that I went to in 2007, it's like I think the only girl that I saw that didn't work for Blizzard, was my fiance, and that was it.
It's crazy.
One thing I mentioned, I don't know if either of you guys are on the show. Do they set the dates for BlizzCon based on their internal progress, or when they can get a free weekend at the Anaheim Convention Center, or both? Like, is the previous 6 weeks all booked up for like monster truck shows already? And they were like, we're gonna do this in October. Oh man, it's all booked up again, man. Oh well, we got to go in November.
It seems to be falling on the same weekend though.
It was October traditionally. It was my experience anyway. They did August one year, and it seemed like it's been November the last 2 years. It's getting later. It seems like.
I don't know.
I think if you look at it fiscally, like maybe that's the way they're looking at it now. I don't know, but it's a good time because it's not so close to the end of the quarter / fiscal year that they can kind of hype some stuff and like maybe help drum up investors and stock and etc. This is just the business side of it, me thinking about that, and so maybe that kind of helps. But I don't know. I mean, it seemed I haven't heard anyone complain about early November being bad per se.
Except that it gets cold.
At least it cools off a little. My dad lives in San Diego, which is like 90 miles south of there. So I was visiting my parents. I was on the phone with him last weekend. It was 94 degrees in San Diego last weekend.
Yikes.
So it can easily be 90 degrees, 100 degrees at Anaheim at BlizzCon. Luckily, it's you're indoors the whole time, and usually it's freezing. So a couple of years in a row, I was playing, endless time on the Diablo demos, and I was like running under some AC vent where they have that huge, giant aircraft hangar ceiling in there. And you can like need a coat to be playing games on the show floor. You go outside and it's 87 degrees at midnight, but
sounds amazing.
You wouldn't know that, Katniss. You've never been there, so
nope, I got nothing.
Soon you will.
Yes, I'll be purchasing my tickets in 3 weeks. They go on sale Wednesday, April 15th, 7 p.m. Pacific. And then there's also another sale date on Saturday, April 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So they're releasing them in 2 batches. And if you can't even get them on either of those dates, there's usually a lot of people doing like buy in bulk and then, trade them around at face value to help out the community and stuff. So don't fret.
And they've been giving a reasonable number out to fan sites on and off in recent years.
That's right, yeah, because you had a bunch of people come.
I think we had 10 to give away a couple of years ago. Last year we didn't get any because it kind of depends on which game has the biggest presence that year. Like if there's a new World of Warcraft going to be announced, they'll have lots of World of Warcraft sites there and prizes for them, and the same thing with with Hearthstone and other stuff. So you can kind of get a sense of which game is going to have a big thing or not based on which year it is and what kind of fan site attention they're giving. So fingers crossed.
Of course.
Indeed. All right. Any other topics? We're running low on time here at this point, so.
Let me pull up what.
Any last minute?
All my notes have been covered. So I
guess the only other thing is, of course, we didn't get to cover it last week because we didn't have an episode last week because someone wasn't feeling well. Our gym was removed.
That's right. Bane of the Stricken 2 OP.
Yeah, unfortunately, this was one of those times when I wish I wasn't right, but I said that the thing looked like it was going to replace the Bane of the Trapped as like one of the most powerful gyms, and it indeed was just far too powerful, and they had to remove it. Sadly,
it's gone.
Did you get to test that on the PTR before it was gone? I
did not.
No.
Me either. It was only seasonal, right? It was the one that they hadn't actually admitted that they were seasonal drops yet. I had not seen it. I had not made a seasonal character yet at that point, and then it was gone before I had a chance.
Yeah, it was gonna be season only, and it just was. Once you hit that level 25 unlock, if you were pet class, it was just insane. Yeah. How quickly you could stack it up and how much extra damage that it did.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't say it's gone forever. They said we're not happy with the implementation and we're going to work on it, which may or may not be forever. My first wife said that. I haven't seen her in 15 years, so you never know how these things go.
You never know. But yeah, it was just they said they didn't have time to actually get it balanced in terms of the patch. And when this was communicated to us, they hadn't announced the end of the season yet. And then like a week later, and it's just like, oh crap, yeah, so they wouldn't be. They basically had themselves like 3 weeks in order to try and either fix the gym or remove it and have it come in a later patch. So it'll be okay. I guess we'll have to accept this.
Maybe they could have just nerfed it into indefinite condition and everyone would have hated it like they did with the IK set.
There you go.
Womp womp.
And just left it there for the barbarians to complain about. Except no one has an emotional attachment to a gym that doesn't yet exist, so it wouldn't have been so bad.
Right. So yeah, I guess that will do it for us. We did have some feedback items and we did have some items. But because obviously we have our special guest here and we went along on
because of Flux's goddamn Demon Hunter story.
we went along on a few.
Oh, here's one.
My story had 2 intermissions, just to give you an idea of the length of it.
And here's one that you'd actually like coming from chat, Flux. Is every time that Flux makes a Jay Wilson or an ex-wife joke, take a drink.
Well, I've been doing that. That's what explains the jokes, though. So it's kind of a feedback loop there, sadly enough.
You'd be murdering people.
It wouldn't be an episode with the 3 of us here if someone didn't at least mention Bobby's eyes once.
Yeah, we've kind of lost that one lately. They need to do some more greedy stuff.
Yeah.
I guess they have that whole pay-to-win Hearthstone now, so we don't need to talk about it anymore.
Oh my god.
Oh my, hey now.
Bobby's gaze has turned to another game.
All right, well, I guess starting to roll towards the end here, anything that you guys want to leave with parting words, excitements for Season 3, plans for Season 2, wild theories about anything, go.
How much longer is the season? It's what, 10 more days? 9 more days?
10 more days.
10 more days.
It ends on Easter.
Can I tell my Easter joke again?
Yes.
So,
sure.
Of course, the season ends on Easter, so obviously any hardcore characters that die that day are automatically resurrected. It's kind of a hidden feature, though. You know what hidden
3 days later.
Called?
Yeah.
But but it's kind of a hidden feature because that's, an Easter egg.
But
Bum.
I'll have to insert some of that, like, Price is Right.
I think the Pac-Man dying sound is better, personally.
I like that one, too.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to go through and mention that we haven't gotten a lot of entries for the contest, and because we didn't do an episode last week, we just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a contest that you can win a signed copy of Reaper of Souls. We're going to be extending it one more week, so we'll be doing the giveaway on next week's episode. Provided we get more than like 2 entries. So if you want to go and be the 3rd entry, by all means, that will give you a 30% chance at winning a signed collector's edition of Reaper of Souls. That you can go through and put on your little mantle or your nerd bookshelf, which I don't yet have one somewhere. Well,
the door would hit it if you had one. So.
Yeah, just remember this. The contest itself is Leviathan. What was the contest rules?
Basically just recapping your favorite or most memorable moment from Reaper Souls. It's super open-ended, and we kind of had it that way just so everyone could actually participate, because all you need is a memory. All you need is to have played Reaper Souls. But yeah, basically just anything like story-wise or video-wise, however you want to communicate your favorite memory or moment from Reaper. You hit a barrel and you got a furnace. That's a story. Tell that story somehow. And
you completed normal mode in the story, killed Malthael and had a furnace drop. How's that one?
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So you're giving a prize that requires you to have played the prize in order to win the prize.
But it's a signed prize of the prize.
That's like a recursive prize there. I guess you can give it to someone who isn't. Of course, they have that on half price sale this week, right? Part of their anniversary thing. So a $19.99 value plus lots of silver paint.
Yes, indeed.
And did either of you hang on to this since the launch party, or what? Where'd you come into this prize?
Because at the Reaper of Souls party, this is nice tie-in to come full circle. At the Reaper of Souls party, launch party, they were taking questions from Twitter to offer up to the devs, because it was Josh and Wyatt on stage with Nevelistis asking them questions that she had compiled. And I gave one of those questions, and everyone whose question got asked on stage got a signed copy of it. And I just got that copy, like a month ago.
You wait a year to get it?
Yeah, I got it like a month ago.
Okay, that's even better than the contest. So the contest, you have to have played the contest to win the contest. Blizzard gives you the prize for this game that came out a year ago. Wow. This explains the whole data mining thing.
It's just too meta.
I love this part.
All right, well, I guess we can start rolling the show here. I'm excited for Season 3. Season 2 wasn't quite what I thought it would be. I'm a little bummed. Obviously, a death doesn't help, but the fact that it's a short season, I'm not going to get back on that soapbox, but it doesn't help. But I'm glad that we're moving the game forward. Season 3 is going to be absolutely insane. Have we confirmed classes, by the way? Nineball, are you going to play something different?
Yes, I'm going to play something different. I'm going to play a Demon Hunter.
Going back to
play
the
X-Wing.
DH.
And yeah, I will also play X-Wing. I have a little build that I'm working out with TIE Defenders and TIE Phantoms, so
Flux,
look forward to that in the future.
Sweet. Flux, are you playing DH again, or are you
I actually had grand plans weeks ago to either go all intelligence or all strength classes the next time. Obviously, everyone's kind of jumping on the bar bandwagon, or at least they were until about 2 days ago. Maybe that's been canceled. Has the bar bandwagon, did it crash and burn, and is it gone, or is it just a little bit slower now?
Trundle's quite slower.
But then I really enjoy the Demon Hunter Strafe with Natalia's set build, and I actually fairly much like the Unhallowed Essences, even though I wish it worked with something other than multi-shot alone. So, and I actually really like the Monk Dashing Strike build now. So I had planned, like, maybe I'll just do totally different. You kind of want to play two of the same, the same main stat, right? Because it's so easy to, just
For
kind
gear
of share
swapping.
gear. And you obviously have the gems that are useful and stuff for that. You're building them up, but it's harder to go cross main stat. But they now have 3 new builds that I really like. I still really enjoy Marauders, but I kind of want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I'll never surpass the level of mastery and awesome dominance my current Demon Hunter has in Marauders. So there's no point in trying to recreate it. Kind of why you're not playing a Crusader again, Katniss. When you defined the build for a generation, you kind of want to move on, right?
I suppose.
So once I do my GR52 tonight and have set all the records for the greater rifts for Demon Hunters in season 2, I'll probably want to play something different. And yet there's different builds that I really like. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but maybe I'll get a job and a life and a girlfriend and stop playing video games entirely.
Whoa! Stay tuned. We'll find
Scary
out.
ending there. Yeah, I think we can rule that. So it's a problem.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Flux, so much for joining us and being our special prized guest.
Thanks for inviting me, guys, and all the Jay Wilson jokes that come along with that.
Always, man. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for kind of giving us our start in the podcasting realm, being on your show.
Yeah,
really,
definitely.
you had never been, I know Nineball was, because that was long before you ever did this, but do you ever recall when you were first on the? I thought you'd done some podcasting before I ever had you on the Leviathan.
No, that was the first brush with that stuff.
And it obviously it was contagious, and here you are.
Here we are today.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys have been listening to episode 43, 1 year of Reaper of Souls. Thank you for joining us for the anniversary. We'll be back next Wednesday, as we always are, except for when we're not. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You can catch us live at twitch.tv/Leviathan111. You can catch the YouTube vids in case you missed the live show. That's going to be at SA Stewart 1 and also on BlizzPro. You can catch it on iTunes and Stitcher. It's everywhere. Contact us on Twitter at the WM Workshop. You can also send an email to westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. You can join the in-game community, Westmarch Workshop, on EU and NA, or Americas, and yeah.
I don't know what any of those things are, but thanks for having me, and I will talk to you guys later. Moo.